tonight I ain't drunk.
You are listening to the Doug Stanhope Podcast.
All right, this is part 2 of Nurse Betty. Jason and Gabe chime in. The children, the spawn of the beast of Nurse Betty, and the story's getting kind of weirder. And, well, if you didn't hear part 1, go back and listen to that shit, or it won't make sense.
Pass me the lampshade, I'm drunk again. Blew my drug money on a quart of gin. Well, I am a cultured man with tastes discriminating, but I'll settle for a tall glass of anything. Well, am I the only one drinking tonight? The only one drinking tonight.
Everyone's seen her vagina.
There's a picture. Oh, there's a...
Yeah, I haven't seen any of this.
I mean, it looks totally normal.
Oh, she wasn't
me.
on the road. No, her vagina hung pretty low. She had
I mean,
Long lips,
Well,
you're saying.
it's uncomfortable for a lady to have. It's like my long balls. That's why Saks underpants are
I guess
an
I just
unofficial
never
sponsor.
noticed. I mean, I've
Well,
seen
you
her.
haven't. If you've been on the road, ask if you want to get testimony from Carlos Valencia, Junior Stopka, Jeff Tate, Brett Erickson, comics that have been on the road and shared hotels, because Bingo's constantly
Yeah,
naked
she's
on the
always
road.
naked.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just never noticed anything abnormal about her.
Yeah, it's a pretty well. It was uncomfortable for her, and her sister got a labiaplasty. Don't you listen to my podcast?
No, I never have.
You heard the one about her? Yeah, so she got her sister got one, and then she decided she wanted the same thing.
Huh. I never heard of such a
And
thing.
yeah, no, if
I mean, if it hung
if
down
I had
to
the
her
time,
knees,
I'd have my balls
that's
tucked
one
up,
thing.
so they're not slapping all over my thighs and irritating. That's the biggest reason I haven't evacuated to Costa Rica is the humidity, and my balls just don't get along. And there's some things that's going to be a daily occurrence. There's a lot of reasons I couldn't move to Costa Rica, but that would be in the top 3 is my balls and the humidity. When you have long, hangy balls.
I'm waiting for monsoon season to end for the same reason, sir.
See, that's one thing women don't have to worry
Do you
about.
have Saks underpants?
No, but I have really long balls.
Oh, I got to fucking get him a pair of large right now. On it. Reverend Derek's on it. Behind the scenes, what makes this podcast work or not work is Reverend Derek is always around, sees who's out of a drink, sees whose ashtray is overfull, sees what man wears a large and has hangy balls in this monsoon humidity. Speaking of evacuating this country, I'll drop this now, and Chaille can cut it up how he likes. We have a Betty. We're in Bisbee, Arizona, in the fun house in the football room with Betty and her son Jason. And Betty was telling us her story of drug dealing in prison back in her early years. Now at 66, nearly a septuagenarian.
Nearly dead.
But as Russ Dunn used to call her, the Edith Bunker of Bisbee, the last person that you could have ever imagine holding drugs, knowing what drugs are, did have a stint in the 80s where she saw an opportunity to deal drugs in some kind of the same way Martha Stewart saw a way to beat the stock market.
I honestly think the writers of Weeds heard about my story and wrote about it.
Really?
No, I'm serious.
Sounds familiar.
Because they had, she was a housewife. She was, into all the school functions. She had kids the same age as my kids.
Never watched Weeds.
I think that you should watch it. It's very similar.
It's kind of a Breaking Bad story if Walter White were a daft, wacky sitcom character of a woman. Long after the whole Betty drug dealing days are done and the prison sentence has been served, funny part is her son, now 40 years old, Jason, is a county prosecutor. You were you were a what do you call it? Defense attorney.
I began as a prosecutor,
All right.
and at some point, I decided I didn't want to be an attorney, and I left the country. When I came back,
Oh, so you left as a prosecutor. You
I
were
left
never.
as a prosecutor.
For
I
some
came
reason.
back and decided to go into defense.
One
And now
thing,
I'm back in the prosecutor's
One
office
thing I want to
again.
add is because of what he went through as a kid with his mother, I think is the reason why I read a letter where somebody was giving him a reference one time that the Maine County prosecutor was giving him a reference, and he said he's not only respected and liked by his peers and the judges, but also by the people that he prosecutes, which is really weird.
But that's.
And I think it's because he went through that with his mother. I
Well,
think
that's
so.
he's an anomaly in that he's a guy that's what I try to tell people to do: get involved in the system for the right reasons. You know, if you fucking hate your job anyway, well then be a cop. If you hate cops and you think cops are corrupt, well, yeah, don't sit around selling shoes at Payless Shoes and hate that. Hate being a cop, but be part of the system and try to make it right. Be Serpico. And at some point, after I met Jason, I moved here about 8 years ago, and Jason was Betty's son, and he was a prosecutor. And then he went, I'm fucking tired of this. I'm tired of the whole system. I'm moving to China. Which is something like I think of doing. I think of defecting to whatever, Belize or Costa Rica or Western Samoa. And I can do it. He has a family. He has 2 kids and a hot wife. And he talked them. He's like, I'm so tired of the system. I'm putting words in your mouth. What was the catalyst for leaving?
Well, I'm not the only one that feels this way, but you start feeling like you're in a box, and you start feeling like you're really not doing much good anyway, and you want to just disappear, and get off the grid and have a life experience that's just for you, just for you and your family. And that's kind of what I saw China to be, an opportunity.
And y'all sat down over tuna casserole and said, everyone voted for backwoods China.
Well, I always wanted to go, into Asia ever since I was young. My suggestion to Lita's my wife, is that we go to Mexico because I honestly thought she was not going to be on board, but I might be able to sell the idea if it was closer. So I suggested, why don't we just go live in Mexico somewhere for a while? And she was like, well, we can go to Mexico anytime we want. We live on the border. If we're going to do something like this, why don't we go someplace like China? And I was like, okay.
Oh, wow.
So it was perfect. And, she walked right into where I wanted her to be. And we were on board together, and we thought, okay.
See, a good prosecutor
Good lawyer,
can make you say exactly.
And the
what's
kids were
gonna-
like 6 and 8 years old, and he just sent them to China schools. Nobody spoke English.
Well, it was just one of those things that
You'll
happened
thank me when
perfectly.
you're older, he said.
Well, and Lita and I were both thinking, that it's an unusual experience for kids to have. We thought they're young, they are like a sponge. They're going to pick up the Chinese language, and what better than to know Chinese when they're older? It might have good, it might create opportunities for them. So we thought, all in all, we talked about the idea, and it seemed like a good idea, and we talked about pros and cons, and so we just did it.
And you taught English, which Brian Hennigan, my manager, taught English in China. And I know a lot of people who go to foreign countries to teach English, but they don't
retarded people who go
but
to
they
foreign
don't
countries
speak
to
the
teach
local
English.
language. So how the fuck does that work? How do you go in not speaking Chinese and teach Chinese people how to speak?
Well, every school is going to be a little bit different. I happened to be in a school that had a lot of money, and they had these course outlines already done for me. My job was very easy. Lita also got a contract to teach.
Well,
She taught.
it can't be easy if you don't speak the language they speak.
Oh, it's easy because they want to hear you. And what you're doing is you're doing a lot of talking in front of them. They want to hear your accent. They seem to they lean towards the American accent. And we knew a lot of
What
people
was the
from...
science fiction movie where there's 2 guys on a planet that were fighting each other, and one's an alien.
Enemy mine.
Enemy mine. That's all I can
Never
think
heard
of.
of
Yeah, you just start making sounds and then punch the other guy in the head when he doesn't understand not to touch you in an inappropriate manner or something. That's how I would see teaching Chinese kids. Like, cigarette. My fucking cigarette. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. That's...
Well, but at the time, you have to keep, context is all important too. China's an up-and-coming power. They're very ambitious as a country. They totally understand that English is the language of business. Right. So a lot of the students that I taught actually already had, some grasp of English. They watch English television. They love, American Hollywood, and movies. And so what they really wanted to do was practice what they've already been practicing all their life. And they would use their broken English and ask me how to correctly say.
And they're all short
words.
and they spit. And I remember the stories you told me about China were just horrifying. I've never wanted to visit there, and you made me not want to visit there more.
Well, I hope my intent was never to make anyone not want to visit there because I love being in China.
Oh, I know.
But their culture, of course, is very different and.
That's the problem, is the stories you told that you thought were pluses were huge minuses.
Well, I was in rural China. Of course, where I was not Shanghai.
Rural
or
in
Beijing.
what, 40 million people in your town?
Well, I lived in a small town of 200,000.
And
it was about...
That is a small town for China.
And it was... They had big buildings and everything else. There was a university there, but... it was...
But they'd never seen Western children.
Well, I'm from a small town of 6,000, so my concept of small was a lot different than theirs. But one thing I did see while I was there is, and I was only there for about 2 years, but the changes in their country were so rapid. And like I said, I was living in a rural area, but in that short span of time, when I arrived there were people with goats tied to a tree in the median of the roadway, to now they're building these freeways that are spanning and connecting all these cities together, and the amount of growth in that short period of time was amazing, and the school I attended was a great illustration of the contrast of what was happening there too. You'd have a new student that would arrive in what I called a chug-a-lug. There were these three-wheeler kind of tractor-looking things, and they kind of, I think a lawnmower engine was powering them. And then right beside that student would pull up a black Mercedes, and both students would get out and walk in and join the student body. And that's kind of how China was, where there's this rich elite group and there was this poor peasant farmer group.
I remember you telling me that as a libertarian, I would love it because as long as you don't talk shit about the government, you fucking do whatever you want. You smoke everywhere. You drink everywhere. There's no real rules like that unless you're fucking with the powers that be. If you're standing in front of a tank, yeah, that's probably a bad thing, Tiananmen Square. But if you want to have illegal gambling on the back of your pickup truck, who's going to fuck with you?
Well, and as long as you weren't advertising it and, you weren't, creating some kind of situation where it was going to dirty the mind of the people around you, at least obviously, then they pretty much left you alone. That's true. And they made it very clear when you went to China, there's certain things you don't do. There were rules to teaching at the school. You don't talk religion. You don't talk politics. And I for the most part, I did respect those rules. I was never going to get out on a street corner and preach, about how democracy is better than anything else. I'd never do that. I don't want to get shipped out or killed.
I did a private gig, which is very rare for my act. No one thinks this is good for their company, but I did one for timeshare salesmen in Cancun. And the guy said, I can never move back to America because of the corruption down here. It makes everything so easy because it's simple. Law in this country is so fucked and contradictory, and
it's like it gets in the way.
Yeah. Where he said I get a DUI where I was blotto, blackout, shit-faced on Christmas night or Christmas Eve, and he said I just knew how much to pay the cop so I could get to where I was going, and it made everything simple. And a small girl died under his wheels that night. All right, I put that part in as a warning.
They call that collateral damage.
Yes.
It's all right.
Yeah. You know what? You don't get the beach and the sun and the sand for nothing. Sometimes a kid's gonna die, but that's the same as how you made China sound. Where once you know who to not make eye contact with, basically, it's a free society.
But there's no rules. You told me about how you had a motor scooter. He had a motor scooter with a family of 4. And they all got on this motor scooter. Imagine this country getting on without putting helmets and your kids and you know.
that even the Chinese did. But I didn't have a driver's license, which would have been a problem for anybody else. But some of the other foreign teachers there just said, you know what? When the cop pulls you over, if it ever happens, just keep talking English to them. They're going to talk Chinese to you. Act like you don't know what you're doing, and eventually the cop's going to get frustrated and just say, go on. Just wave you on because he doesn't know what to do. So, we drove around on the streets with our motorbike, and, at that time, it was me, Lita, and 2 kids, and most of our driving was on campus. We'd all ride. It was a little tiny moped, but all 4 of us would ride.
And the size of those fake titties, that's 2 extra kids.
Well,
those are 2 breastfeeders right there on the chest.
Perfect, example of my motor scooter experience. We were driving back from a Christmas Eve party, and they asked me to be Santa Claus because I was one of the few white guys there, and they thought it was funny. So I dressed up in my Santa suit. We were driving back from the party. I don't know, we were going maybe 20 miles an hour down a sidewalk, and a little dog runs out in front of us, and these are pretty smart dogs, and I could probably talk 15 minutes just about the dogs. But anyway, to make a long story short, this dog ran out in front of us.
That's something you didn't get from your mother.
But I thought for sure this dog was going to move, and I thought, I got 4 people on this little tiny motor scooter. I can't swerve or we're going to crash. So I just kept going. The dog didn't move. We went clean over this dog. Clunk, clunk.
No.
And we just,
And
was
Tiny
amazing.
Tim brought it home for dinner.
and it ran off into the bushes, but, that was just another night on the motor scooter, and people were going about their business, and we were all packed on, me in my Santa suit, and my 2 kids and my wife, clinging on a tiny little moped. It's just the way it was.
It's like a PETA ad.
Yeah, that's
You on a moped running over a dog.
dressed as Santa Claus.
suit.
I don't know if that's the saddest or funniest way to... I don't know if we should start the podcast with that after we replace the lost footage.
Well, and coming back to America, it was kind of hard because, as long as...
I moved to Hollywood when I was 18 to become an actor, and I did it like old school. I took a train across country from Worcester, Massachusetts, with $450 in my pocket, and it was hard to come back as a failure from that. But how do you like? First of all, there's no expectations when you go to China. So you're not coming back with your tail between your legs because you're not the new emperor. Or I don't know. I know you felt bad coming back.
Well, we felt bad coming back only because that wasn't our plan. We actually wanted to end up in Italy. Our plan was to spend 2 years in China, 2 years somewhere in the Middle East, and then end up in Italy. But
Well, if you ask anyone that's in the industry, like, how do I become Italian? They go, well, you got to do at least 2 years of Chinese. That's basically.
You got to remember, hey, wait a minute. You got to remember, you're talking to a kid that was raised in Bisbee. Need I say more?
Well, yeah, there's a
kid
listening
was
audience. This is
raised
not
in Bisbee.
this is a conversation with us, but yeah, no, that
You
doesn't
got to
say
know
anything to
Bisbee.
the people who
Yeah,
are listening
you
to the
gotta know
podcast.
Bisbee.
Well, we originally looked for teaching jobs in Italy, and they're very competitive, and I have no teaching experience. But if you want to teach and you have no experience, you go where the biggest demand is. No one in their right mind wants to go to China, so that's where we went. And
I think
that's where I actually
prosecutors
wanted
a better
to go.
job in China. I think there's a bigger growth industry.
Well, if you want to work internationally, I advise strongly that you not go into law because you learn very jurisdictional, knowledge, and you're useless when you leave that jurisdiction. So, truthfully, if anyone's listening out there, if you want to be an international player, law is the last place you want to go.
Tell me and I'll tell him. You can just say it out loud. It's not a fucking professional. There you go.
Of course not. I'm here.
But I felt
Hey,
bad.
stay on mic.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
I didn't feel bad about coming back because I felt like I didn't accomplish what I wanted, but it was hard to come back just because I was so free while I was there. And it's hard, even when I talk to people now, for them to understand, because they think of China as this dictatorship where you can't do anything. But the truth is, like you said, if you know what the wrong things are, there's very bright lines. You're very free, and like me and my family can jump on a scooter without a license. And as long as we aren't hurting anybody, no one's going to care. I started a business there in the university business district where I sold jewelry. And, I mean, obviously you needed a business license to do it. I got to meet some students that were kind of, connected. If you know people that are connected to the Communist Party and they like you, you can pretty much do whatever you want. And what would happen is they would tell me when the regulator was going to come by, probably because the regulator told them he was going to come by, and they would take it upon themselves to close my shop up. I'd go home. The regulator would come by and check.
That's kind of a brutal, like an ego thing where, I always said, if Hitler said, "Oh, you were really funny tonight," I go, "That guy's not so bad." But if you're connected to the Communist Party, it's like cops. I had such a awful view of cops, and I'd fantasize about them being killed en masse in camps. And then I moved here where you actually meet the cops, and you, like Raina across the street, a fucking guy is absolutely fucking beautiful guy. And now I read Radley Balko's book, Rise of the Warrior Cop, and nothing could make you hate cops worse. Have you read it yet? I gave you a copy.
I started it.
It's fucking brutal. But again, it's not the cops. It's the people that are telling the cops what to do. But when cops like you, like even if I hadn't lived here, you're like, oh, the cops, I get an in with the cops, and all of a sudden you feel some kind of power. So the communists like me.
Well, and there's a certain amount you know that you're okay as long as you don't screw with the powers that be. And I suppose if you want to be a rebel, and you want to rebel against the powers that be, you're probably in the wrong country. If you want to carve out a little tiny niche and not bother anybody and go about your business, then you're going to feel probably pretty safe.
But at the same time, once those powers that be like you, there's part of you that goes, ooh, I can push this. I can make them like me more, and I can do more damage. Like, I can see that whole, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right.
The same way I've never been famous, but I've been famous enough to see where I'd fucking hate it. And people, well, you don't know no, I've been famous enough. If I don't like a little tiny bit of fame, I know I'm not going to like more. If I hate asparagus, well, you got to try a whole bowl. No, that doesn't make sense. But I can see where if I were, they took a shine to me. Just like this Snowden guy, where they, like, all these countries, they go, oh, you can come here. Well, I'd be a celebrity if I went to Venezuela only because they fucking hate the States, and now we have one of yours, and I could parlay that into something. Ego's a motherfucker.
Well, and on that, political note, in my opinion, when you start talking politics and the meaning of power, benevolent dictatorship, in my opinion, is probably the most efficient form of government.
I've said the same thing.
So it's
I had
really
a
about
joke. You don't, haha.
But it's
Go ahead.
about the people, that have the power. And I suppose we can take this full circle, and that's one of the reasons that I feel real comfortable as a prosecutor, because I've lived through a situation where people have judged my own family, in a way that just wasn't true, absolutely not true, where they would consider people that I love and I know that are kind people, nice people, gentle people, they would judge them as evil drug dealers. But I was aware enough, and obviously that's not them. They aren't going to hurt anybody. And when you have people in positions like the prosecution or a judge, and these are people...
Which is almost like professional sports in that you're judged on a win-loss. Okay, well...
Well, not even necessarily win-loss, but you have people that have no experience of what it's like to be on the other side, and they're seeing it completely from a situation where, I mean, maybe they've lived a very sterile life. They've never tried drugs. They've never known people who have used drugs.
Well,
they've never known anybody.
Or they think they're different. Where I know a lot of people that go, yeah, well, yeah, we do cocaine at parties, but it's not like these meth heads, which to an extent is true.
Well, no, but more particularly, I mean, there's a guy that I'm not going to ever use his name. I really like him. I respect him. But
Write it down. I'll say it.
Well,
I'll cough.
I wouldn't want to bring him any harm because he's a good person. But his flaw is that he has no perspective. Because he seems to think, he believes he's a good person. He tries really hard to be a good person. He's never used drugs. You know, I can't really say he's a churchgoer because he's not, but he would be what you'd consider like the stereotypical good Mormon personality. He's not a Mormon, but just to give you the stereotype. You know, and here he is judging what I would think are normal people when he has no idea what a normal person is, because in his limited view of the world, what he is normal. And everybody...
Well, that's kind of most of us think that, but hopefully you see that you think that, and that's not true. Am I making sense?
Yeah, well, you have to have a certain level of self-awareness when it comes to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he's an older man, and he's a very intelligent person, but his existence has been so narrow that he has a false impression that his little narrow world is representative of the larger world. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is you have people like him that end up rising in these positions of power and judgment, you know, in the prosecutor's office, in the courts, and they're good, clean, hardworking people, but they represent a very small percentage of the average person.
Yeah.
But they're the ones casting judgment on us every day. And I can tell you firsthand, you don't want that guy to judge you when you find yourself making a mistake. And unfortunately, when you do make that mistake, and we all make mistakes, even at some point they're going to make a mistake. They don't want to have someone like them managing their case.
Well, that's just like the joke of a jury of your peers. Go ahead. Yeah.
I can even see.
Oh, yeah, all right. Yeah, no, that's you say it out loud. Get on the mic.
The book you were just talking about, the book you were reading about the 3 felonies every.
Oh yeah, he hasn't read that. I want to talk to him after I'm done reading it and after he's done reading it. That deals more. 3 Felonies a Day is a book I'm reading that where the premise is the average professional is guilty of 3 felonies roughly a day without knowing it because of the breadth of federal law. Like so many laws, some contradictory, some so vague that they can prosecute you without you really knowing what the crime was. But I haven't finished it. But what were you saying?
Well, but that's a book about people that don't know. And then you have another group of people that actually do know. And they're people in power. And they're people that are judges and lawyers and doctors. And they're doing things like smoking dope from time to time. And then we find ourselves prosecuting, you know, some college kid who got mixed up with the wrong group of people and did something that they probably wouldn't have done otherwise.
But prosecutors
prosecutors
build their careers on victories, just like the fucking Yankees. You know, like, oh, I tried to, I thought that was wrong, but we couldn't. There was not enough case law to back it. Well,
Yeah.
you're one of the few people I know that is doing the right thing.
Well, everybody wants to do their job well. I believe that. You know, and even some of these people I've referred to that I think, you know, are the absolute clean.
Not necessarily do their job well. They want to appear
They
like
have good
they're-
intentions.
Not necessarily. Some people want to. I'm going to be a prosecutor. I'm going to arrest the most people. I'm going to put the most people behind bars, and that's not necessarily the way to do it. And when you say judges, a jury of your peers, well, you don't have a judge of your peers. Judges are always selected from the cream of the crop of the top of the people that worked that angle. You don't have a guy that, well, I was a UPS man, now I'm a judge. Like
Yeah, well, and that's what Jason was talking about earlier. I think is perspective is that you get people with such limited perspective that fuck can't.
You get the fucking guy from the Celebrity Rehab, the Zimmerman guy. Dr. Drew's right-hand man. He was a drug addict, the pockmarked guy. And he's the guy, he's talking to drug addicts from a drug addict's perspective. He knows what the fuck, you don't get I was a felon for a while, and I did 7 years in prison, and then I get out, I get a real job, and now I'm a judge, so I understand what you went through. That guy is not a judge.
Right. How can you empathize when you're in a position of power if you have no exposure to the other side? How can you?
Yeah, Dr. Ruth.
And it's not even a flaw.
A priest giving sex advice. What?
It's not a personality flaw. These are good people. These are people that I respect
And that's where I
admire.
said good intentions.
Right.
Exactly. Right.
But they just
to
have...
them, they have good intentions.
They have no clue.
How could they know? Because they've never been exposed, and they would never do it intentionally. And you go back to that book you were talking about, where maybe unintentionally they actually are felons every day. They don't even know it. Maybe if they were to consider that, maybe that would open their mind a little bit.
Yeah, it's sorry, lost my thought. Go ahead.
I was going to say what you had touched on earlier. When I had to go to weed rehab when I was in the Army. And
Weed rehab, yes.
was basically alcohol rehab. But the guy had the same resume. I had problems with this, and I did time with this. So I came at him with, well, I'm just training for your job. You make a lot of money at this point. I'm putting in my time. So it's all perspective.
Well, and then the flip side of the coin is there are people in positions of respect, professionals, that consciously do things like smoke weed from time to time. And if they were prosecuted to the full extent of the law, like some other people are, their life would be destroyed. And here they're hardworking taxpayers that would never hurt you. They would give you the coat off their back on a cold day, but they're consciously breaking the law, and then they turn around and they're prosecuting people and because the law says they have to. And it just seems like a real mixed up mess. It's a mess.
That's why you went to China,
fucked.
right?
That's not what a mess. A mess is when a waiter carrying a large bus tray slips on a banana peel on his way to the kitchen, and everyone at the 4-star restaurant goes, "What?" It's fucked when you look at what prison is like. People, sorry, now I'm getting all fucking angry.
Yeah, get angry. That's
please.
okay.
But it's messed up because they send these kids to prison and they don't realize they should spend some time in prison. Scared Straight should be directed to prosecutors, judges. Those are the people who should have to spend some time in prison and go, really, is this going to benefit society? Is to take someone, even if they're guilty of something that should be a crime.
You shouldn't be a prosecutor unless your mother's been in prison.
Well, we're there to solve problems. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're trying to say is, what are we doing by supporting this system? Are we really solving any problems? And I would have to say no. And one of the things that caused, when I came back from China, I went into the defense. And I couldn't stand it because I had 3 clients in a row. And it's called scouts. And basically, 2 of them were in college. Good students, nice kids. They would never hurt you. They could be your neighbor. You'd never have to worry about them stealing your bike, breaking into your house, hurting your kids. They'll be there to help you. They're going to call the cops if there's a problem. That's the kind of people they are. Well, they're being prosecuted because someone offered them $50 or $100, friends of theirs that they also saw as being harmless, to drive down the street and then drive back and tell them whether or not there were any cops on that particular road. And then they went about their business. Well, it turns out that the people they were driving down the road for got caught. Okay, they obviously weren't very good scouts, but that's beside the point. When these people ended up getting caught with their load of dope, the scouts get fully prosecuted in the same manner as the people driving the load. So these kids were facing prison, and at the time, Cochise County had a very strict policy. Basically, their best offer they'd ever get, unless I won the case for them, was 1.5 years in prison. And I couldn't stand stand the idea that these kids, 19 and 20 years old, were going to go to prison for a year and a half because a friend they knew asked them to drive down the street and call them if they saw any cops. And I couldn't tolerate it. It just caused me great emotional distress.
You have a lot less power to change in the defense as opposed to in the prosecutor's office.
Well, I ended up going back into the prosecutor's office after these cases, and one of the things that I'm doing is basically trying to create a situation where these people are given a chance to go into what's called adult diversion. And first-time nonviolent offenders, even though I honestly, and I'm willing to say this on the air, I don't care who hears it, I'm absolutely 100% against the drug war. I don't think legislating someone's morality, as long as
you're
they're not
alone.
hurting anybody.
In your field, you're not alone.
I want to go after the people that are hurting you. I want to go after that guy that lives next door that's going to steal your bike, hurt your kids, take your property, and somehow cause you damage in your life. These other people that are doing what they want to do in the privacy of their own home, I don't care what they're doing. And I don't think any of us should care what they're doing, as long as they leave us alone.
I used to toy with a bit that capitalism would be equally as culpable as drugs are, and more so if you want to go for the root cause of the crime. All right, you smoke crack and you're addicted and you rob me because you need crack money. Well, that's a small percentage. The people that just steal from you because they want money under a capitalist system, I just want to fucking have a lot of money so I can get chicks and shit. That's the cause of the most crime, would be fucking money and greed. See, are we going to make greed? Do I have to become that guy from Wall Street? I forget the character's name.
Well,
greed is good.
I've been wanting to talk to someone at this for a while, and it seems good. Isn't it? Don't you think though, prosecuting low-level people has become an extension of like an arm of the economy? It's something that we rely on, just like keeping old people alive in old folks' homes. You need that. That way, uneducated young women can get a CNA and change their diapers and shit, and have it's a whole arm of the economy. And the same thing with. Because as a pothead, for a long time, I was angry. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Why don't they, you read The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And you say that everything, there's a $5,000 reward at the end of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. If you can refute the evidence in pro-weed, basically, is what it is. And if that's true, then how does it justify with the politicians making it illegal? And then I had to go, oh, well, because it's a fucking... It's
a cash
It's
cow.
an economic thing. Yeah, you can't fucking undermine the... how many different sectors of the economy would legalized hemp undermine?
Well, every time you hear drug proponents, well, if we tax it and make it legal, then how many people are going to lose their jobs as prison guards? We have the largest prison population.
Exactly.
I would love to have the numbers of how many jobs would be lost if we cured cancer.
Right.
Keep treating the symptoms. Oh, but if someone had the cure, I bet they'd fucking quash it in a second because no one has a job.
Yeah. I buy shitty $2.99 Walmart T-shirts regardless of what they say because I have to clothe myself. But if I bought a hemp T-shirt, I wouldn't have to buy one every 6 months because it fucking ran out. It would undermine the whole cotton industry. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to think about,
Well, and that's very true in the counseling industry as a result. In DUI, there's a cottage industry that's wrapped around MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, with these little classes they do. And there's no doubt that if you change some of these laws, there's going to be a lot of people out of work. And just our community alone, you look at the number of government vehicles that drive around. Our economy is so dependent on those Border Patrol agents and those customs agents getting nice, big salaries. That they buy things in our stores. They're paying taxes.
I saw two of those guys taking a nap on a dirt road by my house today, by the way.
But they're making very good money to take that nap.
Oh, and they're going to highest the most state-of-the-art equipment.
They don't fuck with me, so I don't fuck with them.
And they're renting houses from people for double the money that they could get in this little town.
Well, and
all of those types of things.
And Doug raises a great point, too. It's not just their salaries. It's the cars they drive around in. It's the equipment that gets purchased, Raytheon, all these other companies. We need these crimes. We need the war.
absolutely.
We
The
need
war
it
on
all.
drugs has funneled so much money. The government has funneled so much money into local police forces based on how many drug arrests, not arrests, murder, rape, simply on drug arrests. And when you get through this Radley Balko book, Rise of the Warrior Cop, I can't fucking recommend it
get that
enough.
one.
And it gives you empathy for the police, where they're given a town this size or Sierra Vista size, 25,000 people, fucking tanks and armored, based on, well, the Newtown school shooting. You can't say it can never happen here. Terrorism can happen anywhere. And when you give a bunch of dudes, I'm not even going to say I'm not one of them, but you give a bunch of dudes who wanted to be cops a fucking tank, they're going to find a reason they need to use it.
Absolutely.
And he made that point so well. So you can't really blame the police when it all boils down to economics.
Well, and we're all to blame. And here's a good example. I'm going to hang my own.
Fuck you!
Well, I'm going to put my own. Okay.
Blame Chad Shank. You'll get the elbows, sir.
yeah.
You're gonna get the elbows.
I'm pretty guilty of a lot of shit. I don't know. Let me hear him
Go
out.
ahead.
Well, as I said a few moments ago, I was hired into the county attorney's office.
Hang on. You were rehired into the county's attorney's office. Let's pause right there so you can save this in case it gets knocked over again. Let's take a quick break and take a piss. And stay tuned. Hey, until we know what the fuck we're doing, please feel free to email questions, suggestions, all the dumb shit to Doug@DougStanhope.com and put podcast in the subject and include your first name and where you're writing from. And then we'll read that shit maybe. Okay.
Did you get this?
Yeah, saved it.
Okay, if you're ever gonna smoke out of a bong, do it on mic.
He did, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, I don't have headphones.
He caught that. Yeah.
I was trying to catch it in.
All right. So you were on defense after you came back from China, hated it, decided to go back to the prosecutor's office.
I didn't hate it. I actually liked it. But on the defense, you have a lot less leverage. You have a lot less power, to be frank. And prosecutors, to a certain
prosecutors
extent,
can cut you a deal. Defense
and
can't.
You have you have a higher ethical obligation in terms of your bar license, but at the same time, you have a lot more power. If you see an opportunity where you can help somebody. Well, my primary goal was to, like I said earlier, build what's called the adult diversion program. And probably a lot of you listening don't know what that is.
No, see, you keep saying you're discounting my audience. My audience are probably in an adult diversion.
They've had a few
they're your
court cases.
clients.
Probably,
Okay,
this is
they're
probably
your-
some violation of their probation is listening to me. Oh, did you just do it? He just...
No, it's
all right, we got the SIM card? All right.
So
fucking rinky-dink operation I have. Shawnee is he's our Chaille of the night doing our production, and
being a bit of a failure here though, because I've only erased about.
I just realized
two-thirds of the
I just
night at this
realized
point.
there's duct tape on your headphones.
That's not even
Maybe I
duct
should-
tape. That's like some fucking cheesy
It's
alco
not
tape.
even good
That's
tape.
yeah.
We have low-rent tape on our low-rent headphones.
This is bad.
Oh, I'll cut a check.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, the clients, and I liked being a defense attorney, and actually you can make a lot more money working in the defense. Once again, anyone who wants to be an attorney, if you want to make money, go into the defense. But my clients at the time, well, there were certain policies here in Cochise County. Cochise County had the idea that we need to be harder on drug dealers, and that we want to have, going back to the late 80s, early 90s, some kind of zero tolerance position where I don't care if you're 16 years old, 17 years old, 18, 19, you're going to prison. You run drugs, you're going to prison. It's that simple. It's cut and dry. Tell your friends, because it's going to happen. Well, it turns out that as a defense attorney, I had some of those guys as my clients, and they were not prison material. And in my estimation, not only were their friends not going to understand, the lesson, and they were going to continue to do it because, hey, this is Douglas, Arizona, okay? Every third person walking around in Douglas probably has some affiliation with the drug cartel. I mean, it's Douglas, okay?
Local reference. Come on, people. It's Douglas. Sorry,
Well-
I'm talking to my comedy-friendly fans. Go ahead.
So the county attorney's office thought, you know what? We can change this by just being more strict. And these 16-year-old kids are just going to go to prison. And I couldn't digest that as a reasonable, alternative for these guys. And as of now, first-time nonviolent offenders will get a referral into the adult diversion program as long as they, keep their
Are
ducks in a
white.
row and
As long as they're white? I thought that was
No,
gonna
no,
say
no,
as long
no,
as
no,
they
no,
are
no.
white.
It's Douglas.
I
There's no
was-
white people.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right, Douglas. I was I was thinking of myself once again. We were talking about just thinking of yourself. I'm sorry.
But what it does is it gives these kids, in my opinion, even 19, 20, I was a kid probably till I was 30. They're kids, okay? It gives them a wake-up call that, hey, my neighbor who has never been caught may be driving a pretty cool car, but gosh, I came this close to going to prison. It's real, and by going to diversion, they're still facing certain consequences. They're paying money back into the general fund to pay for law enforcement, et cetera, et cetera.
You don't send them to
But
prison and create a better criminal.
They come out
Yeah, more dangerous.
Yeah.
without being a felon, so now they
With
can...
connections.
Absolutely.
Well, and they have the ability, ultimately, to be the good citizen that they would have been had they not made that decision. And what we all want at the end of the day are people that are going to work hard and pay taxes and be good people, right? And
I
if you're-
rely
Let's
on
yeah,
those
let's
people.
knock out the taxes part.
I rely on those people.
Well, but like for my mother, for example, was dragging the felony behind her. She's a teacher, all right? And that felony that she was dragging behind her prevented her from being able to do what she was not only qualified to do, but what she was good at, okay? And as a result, she ended up having to accept alternatives that were not only not as good for her, but not as good for anybody. She's a good teacher, and there are a lot of students
and a
out there
lousy whore. I know what you're saying.
that would have
Once she
benefited
became a call girl.
from her experience. There are children out there that didn't have the benefit of her as a teacher because she made a mistake in the past, she broke the law, and we can argue about the drug war and whether it was a mistake or not. But the truth is, it was a statute, it was on the books, she violated the law, but she had to drag that around for 30 years. And to some degree, she's still dragging it around. There are still people out there that are judging her for doing what she did. And, that is something that I think can be avoided.
I'd love to hear the book come out someday in the future, the rise of the educator cop, rather than really that's the thing. It's like, are you trying to change certain stupid behaviors and bad decisions people make? That's education. Are you trying to be a militaristic? In our country where we want to have a society that's actually a good living experience. You don't want a bunch of Gestapo breathing down your neck about every little stupid little thing. You want people, hey, that's a stupid thing. You're 17 years old. Yeah, come on.
Have you studied anything? I can't find a really good book about the prison system itself. Where I've read about other prison systems in Norway and Iceland where that work, and they actually teach people. They encourage. What in this country they go, oh, it's a fucking country club prison. The whole prison system is about secondhand revenge in this country. Well, he fucked me, fuck him. He should be raped in prison. This whole culture of where being.
You hit the nail on the head. You said the whole culture. And I think when you get down to it, it's not the prison itself. It's the culture that's wrapped around it. We create the prison because of what we want as a public. You have people out there that are slamming hammers down on the table saying, I wish they were raped, et cetera, et cetera. I want that person that smoked marijuana to go to prison.
Fuck
I want
him.
that scout, that for $100 drove down the street and called his
I
friend
don't
and
think
said there was
that's
no
true,
law
though.
enforcement.
I think that the people who have a vested interest, dollars in terms of like, hey, this is my job. If I don't incarcerate more people, I'm not, I'm not going to be able to take home this kind of money, and they latch on to, somebody in an angry moment in our society said,
No, but
No,
it's,
people fucking want blood justice. They don't want the blood on their hands. They want people to suffer because someone spray painted their fucking mailbox and they don't know who it is. And fuck everybody. And
they say that in a minute, but when they're faced with the actual person and then the stupid kid
But
who
they're
spray
not.
painted whatever,
They're not. They're
they wouldn't
faced with a
follow through
culture
with
of
that.
CNN
Exactly.
that tells them all this horrible shit is happening. It's an old Bill Hicks bit where he talks about, I watch CNN and it's blood, war, destruction, hell, shit. I can't do it justice. And then I look out my window and it's chirp, chirp. Chirp, chirp. Like, where is all this shit happening? But because of the media has built people up into this frenzy where, there you go. Oh, Derek was just heroic there.
Yes, he was very heroic.
Betty, did you have something to say? Because you grabbed at a microphone.
You
probably
I
lost the
did,
moment.
but I lost the moment.
That's all right.
well, it's a culture. And we are in a culture.
Always give Chad a microphone.
Well, one thing I was thinking is that if you read why we have prisons, and it's all written out and it's all in the law, and it says to rehabilitate and reintroduce into society. But having been in prison, there is no rehabilitation, and all it is punishment. It's punishment, punishment, punishment.
Well, but that's kind of what I was getting at earlier. The words don't matter, okay? People use words to pass laws. The words say one thing, but the culture is something different. We aren't a culture of problem solvers. And that's the root. If you look at places where you say prison is working, it's not because prison is working. It's because the people in that society are working, and they are problem solvers. And they're able to look at something and say, is this a problem? And if the answer is yes, then instead of saying, how do we punish them, we're looking at how do we solve the problem. Because no one wants...
Fantastic.
That's really fantastic.
No one wants anybody to steal from you. I don't want someone to come into my yard and steal my kid's bike, okay? I don't want someone to steal my kid and rape him and kill him. There's certain things in the world I don't want, okay? I don't want some loony walking around the street yelling at everybody because he's high on drugs either, okay? But it's about how do you take that situation and solve it, not how do you punish that guy because he pissed me off because he was yelling at me while I was walking down the street.
So are we a product of
That's
a
very
nanny
mature
state?
of you. Yeah.
Are we a product of a nanny state that we've grown up thinking that government will always take care of everything? That you do these steps, you go to school, you go to college, you get a job. If you don't go to college, you do this. But you can ride in the bike lane and you don't have to look both ways because cars are not allowed to. You assume that growing up in this country that everything's taken care of for you as long as you do your own part, where you don't think that, fuck, yeah, you're a fucking human being out here in a wilderness of the world.
We've gotten to the point of thinking that our job is to complain rather than to solve an issue.
Because you think that you're taken care of.
Right,
All
exactly.
the shit that you grow up thinking is true, Social Security and all. Oh yeah, all you have to do is work hard and everything's.
Well, we started...
Isn't that necessary to support the number of people? That's another problem of overpopulation.
I was going to get to that. Every single...
Well,
any
it always
problem that
gets
we
down to
ever
that.
talk about on this
No.
podcast, we can boil down to too many fucking
Sorry
people.
for ending
I'm
the
gonna-
podcast.
But
I'm
that's
going to
bullshit.
debate that one with you.
I
That's
want
bullshit.
that.
Because if
I
you
agree.
have a very strong, educational culture where it's not this dumbing down that that George Bush.
Name me an overpopulated country full of fucking really bright Norwegian type
Very
of people.
difficult to achieve.
Let's-
I'm not
It
saying
hasn't
it's not,
ever
but
happened.
It hasn't ever happened because we're talking about a very short window.
We're talking from Bisbee, Arizona, where there's 6,000 people, and it's kind of fucked up.
Right, but we have to mature as a culture at this point, there hasn't been 100 million people in a country for more than 70 years. I mean, this is all a new thing.
Right, and you can't treat people as though they're anything more than product in a country that size. When he's working as a prosecutor or in the defense, he probably knows most of the people or knows about the people he's prosecuting or defending. You don't have that in New York City where you have fucking no-knock raids and fucking those are aimless. That's fucking dandelions in a field. They're not human beings. So yeah, I can boil every argument on any level down to overpopulation and too many people.
But every time there's been a push forward in terms of true cultural awareness and where there's been an enlightenment movement, all of that the few bad seeds have been kind of ignored, and you're looking at the potential of a population rather than people who are driven into some stupid decisions by their situation. You're like, hey, these are people who can have this.
But we're talking about this on a purely judicial.
That's exactly the point, though.
But you can't have a judge in a town of a fucking billion people. Oh, this is that, and okay, we'll do all this with that, and
no, but
you can.
The policies,
you can.
Right? The policies.
How? Hang on, how?
You put the right people in power. Okay, you put people in power that have empathy toward their fellow man.
But how do you do that when the people don't know the person that's up for election or up for selection?
Well, we're talking about governmental
and
structures.
now you're talking about power.
I would rather take it back to where Shawnee was going originally and saying, about personal responsibility, and about how we're all victims, and it kind of took the conversation to where we began it, where me living in China, that is one thing that I did get to experience firsthand that I really missed when I came back, okay? When I was in China, no one was taking care of me, okay? No one really gave a crap if I fell down a ditch and hit my head and couldn't climb back out, okay? Except my own family, all right? They were going to climb down there and help me. But no one else cared. If you were walking down the sidewalk and there was a hole in front of you and you were stupid enough to fall in the hole, well, then people would just look at you and think, that's a stupid guy, okay? But in America, we don't think like that.
We think we need to tax the
Why
public.
wasn't there
to
a
put
sign
big,
in front of that fucking hole?
Sign. Hennigan bitches about this all the time. That everywhere you go to the Grand Canyon, there's giant railings. Do not walk around here. Where if you're in the Swiss Alps, you just fucking fall.
Do not jump in that fire.
Yeah.
Do not stab yourself in the eye.
Well,
come on,
and it's
fuck.
that's
That's
about
what
you.
I was talking about. We're raised to think that everything will go okay because of the government. Where you don't think to look both ways. Your mother has to tell you, look both ways to cross the street.
You know what? Crossing the street is a absolute perfect example of the differences between the culture in China and the culture here. The other day I was driving down in Bisbee. We know Bisbee's a one car every 10-minute kind of town, okay? Yeah. I was driving down the road on Bisbee Road. I saw a pedestrian in the distance. As I approached, they just started walking in front of me. And I was like, what the heck?
And you hit him because you work for the prosecutor's office. Fuck you.
You know what I did was...
You can't touch me. I'm untouchable.
They walked right in front of me. And where I was in that awkward yellow light situation where you're like, well, should I keep going and go around them? It's kind of awkward. It's an awkward situation. Yeah. I kept going and I went around them. I looked in my rearview mirror. They were yelling at me and flipping me off. And here I am thinking... Remember that?
I know where you live.
No, that Gary Larson cartoon. Have you ever seen it where that dinosaur is walking through the desert and there's one tree in the middle of the desert and the dinosaur walks right into it? And that's kind of how I felt as this person was crossing a Bisbee road and I'm the one car in plain sight right there and they just choose for some stupid reason to walk right out in front of me with the expectation that the car is going to stop. Now in China, there's a lot to not like about China. One of them is the traffic. Okay, people are crazy.
And the Chinese. Fuck
but you know
those
what?
people.
When you cross a Chinese road, you're crossing knowing they're not going to stop.
Yeah.
Okay? When you walk out, you better be fully prepared to be hit by a car if you make a stupid mistake. And I think that is the ultimate difference between our countries is everybody here, it's like we aren't going to be happy until we've created a padded cell where all of us can live. The government can slide a tray underneath the door and feed us and water us. You know, if we can run around our room and play, you know, if we hit our head on the ground, it's going to have a pad there.
I think Carlin called it. Was it Carlin that said the Nerf world or something?
Nerf world, that's perfect.
That's exactly what we're creating, and it's our fault.
Right.
Me, you, everyone in this room, our neighbors, we're creating that.
But what happens if we don't do that? Doesn't everything collapse because we need to do that to sustain the number of people that are being created?
That's bullshit. Our one of our biggest cities in New York City, it's actually more like China. I was a foot messenger in New York, okay, and you always assume that the fucking cabbies and the whoever it is gonna run your ass over, and you just you dodge through the traffic and you just assume that's the way it's gonna be. It's life and death. You just wade out into the street in New York City. You're a moron. Like you gotta be aware and you gotta be ready to go, and that. That's something in one of our most populous cities that is like Bangkok, is like these other highly dense cities where life is cheap. You gotta have some personal responsibility. So I don't think that's necessarily an overpopulation issue.
It's a the world owes us something issue.
Exactly. That's like where you get in the smaller towns in these, in the middle America, where everybody's like, oh, this sense of entitlement that happens where there's not a lot of exposure to danger. There's not a lot of exposure to true adversity.
So in smaller populated towns, there's less exposure to danger. And people have more of a sense. Where it gets back to our point that fucking overpopulation.
Well, you would say
even Derek wants
Reverend
in now.
Derek wants in.
I have recently learned about the street crossing thing. That guy that he timed it perfectly to cross when you were coming. That's his hour of power. He doesn't get to tell anybody what to do all day. But if he crosses the street at the right time, he gets to make you stop.
Derek knows when to say what he has to say and then get the fuck back to seeing if there's enough ice.
Nice.
Hour of power, baby. That's his hour of power.
And then it's great that he gets someone like you that he walks in front of instead of someone like me who I'm already laying on the horn and looking for an excuse to jump out and fucking show him.
Chad has a lot of anger issues. You're not familiar with Chad.
I don't go into society much for the self-aware psychopath.
Exactly. Self-awareness is the key. As I said, that's why I don't own a gun, because I'm a responsible drunkard and occasional drug user, and I have a fucking Napoleon complex. I know I shouldn't have a gun because I would have a perceived threat when there were none when I was drinking, like those fucking tweakers that used to live across the street that just got evicted. Oh, I think they're fucking casing my house. Clack, clack, puma. Oh, no, they're just looking for their dachshund. I thought that. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, so I know.
Oops.
Yeah, a man has to know his limitations. I think Reagan said that.
He was a great man.
What time are we at? We should wrap this up. I think we're about an hour. Let's throw in the quick story about Gabe, the other son of Betty. If Chaille were here, he'd know bullet points. It's 25 minutes since we broke last to piss.
Only 25 minutes?
No, we're
well over now.
Yeah, just for this part. Yeah. We're about an hour. But I want to tell the Gabe story. Betty will get tomorrow or earlier, depending on how they edit this. That was Jason, Betty's son, her eldest, the prosecutor, and expat. but you have a younger, dumber son. Let's talk about him.
Oh, I wish he was here to tell the story.
Yeah, all right. Well, Jason knows
I'm
enough. You know
indirectly
enough.
a part of the
This
story.
is just a quick story. For a minute, Brian tried to do ill-fated, has never been more appropriate, ill-fated attempt to do a documentary about the younger boy, Gabe, who played in the NFL with an asterisk. He was in training camps. He was a brilliant punter. And could have had a Super Bowl ring, but only if.
Only if.
Get to the beginning of his career.
Okay, he
Quickly.
He was in several training camps.
Went to college where? Ohio, Miami, was it?
What's that?
Where did he go to college?
Oh, he went to U of A for a bit. He went to a community college. He ended up as a punter in Toledo.
All right.
And he did several training camps. Dallas when he was still in college. Early years Bears. He did several training camps. Anyway, he was signed.
He was not a nice person.
You're talking about my baby here. You're talking
No,
about.
but I'm saying he was kind of a prick in training camp.
You're kidding about baby Gabe
Well,
here.
He was the youngest in the family, so he had the youngest.
No, I'm not talking
Kind
with
of.
you. I'm talking like to get along with. I'm
Well,
saying personality matters when it comes to
he
business.
knew he was good, and he got pissed off every time he didn't get a job.
He was not a good sport in
So-
training camps, is
so,
what I've gleaned from the whole story.
He did he played NFL 2 years. One of those years, he had actually signed with the Giants. They sent him to Europe, and he played one season NFL for the Giants in NFL Europe. Came back, first or second preseason game, broke his back. We were all watching it on TV. It was horrible. We see him, leaving the field. He had a broken back, and that
On a
was
stretcher?
No, he's too proud to do that. They kind of limped off. The field. Two people holding him up, took him off the field, broke a lower vertebra. Okay, that was in August. Okay, so he goes into all this therapy, does everything he's supposed to do. February he gets released medically.
This is preseason.
Yeah,
He's
preseason.
He's playing preseason.
He was playing preseason.
This is before Red Zone, so you probably had to fly to New York to actually watch the game where he broke his back.
No, it was on TV. We were having a big party. Broke his back. So okay.
How'd the party go? Did everyone
Put
disperse?
a little damper on it. Okay, so he goes through all his therapy. He's got to fly back to the Giants team doctors like every 3 or 4 weeks to get checked.
Is this story supposed to end up where he went to Disneyland?
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
missed
it
the
ends
prom?
up
Yeah.
there.
That was before the Giants.
No, it wasn't. It was for the
Pretty sure
Giants.
it was.
No. He
No, it's 2001 is
No.
the story.
Well,
Broke-
while we're all
no,
confused, was
no.
there a roughing the kicker call?
There was a roughing the kicker, but they got the penalty. It was
He
good.
broke his back,
It was
but
all
you know
good.
what? The other team lost 15 yards.
Yeah, they
so
lost
It
15
all works
yards.
out.
It was
That's
a-
American
They
justice.
cover the spread. That's what we're wondering.
So he in February he gets medically released, but we don't plan on any no future camps for at least another year. Okay, but then it goes along, and in November there's that horrible Patriots game where they almost lose the game because of the punter. The last
This is new.
You're skipping
Patriots-
forward here.
Patriots against the Colts.
It was 2001, November 2001.
Oh, I can't.
know this
I
because
can't remember the
I
dates.
do.
Well-
because it's one of the best Super Bowls ever was February
Okay,
2002.
so they, he broke his back. He's medically released. We're still not thinking he's going to get called because they're still nervous about him. His back,
he's given up.
Yeah.
Gabe gives up easy. He's
Yeah.
a negativist.
And there's a
he's
game-
nothing will ever go right in my life kind of guy.
And it's the end of November. The Patriots almost lose the game because of their punter. Okay, so we don't think anything about it. It's, a whole big deal. So we get an opportunity to go to Disneyland free free game. His sister's in the military. She gets military day in Disneyland. So we all go to Disneyland. Okay, so
Well, but prior to the trip to Disneyland, he went to a Patriots kicking camp.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
So he went there. There was 5 guys called. Okay, he wasn't one of the guys that got chosen. The other guy was, but he was second. That guy played a game and played a terrible game. Okay. But at that point, when Gabe got released from that camp, he had a string.
Everything sucks. I'm never going to do anything. Fuck this.
He had just been
Let's go to
released
Disneyland.
from several different camps. He was down. He thought, you know what? This sucks. I'm sick of this. I keep going to these camps. They keep rejecting me. But he was second man. But he was like, that's not
And
good
he
enough.
had already been.
Just to give some context, how
Mike,
far,
give him Mike.
to give some context, how far can Gabe kick a field goal?
Oh well, he
He's
doesn't
a
kick.
He's a punter.
He doesn't
Give the
kick.
mic back.
He
Give
doesn't
the mic
kick.
back. You
No,
went
no,
from
no,
producer
His
to
punts-
you're Jeff the drunk on this. Give the
Okay.
mic back.
But
He can do a
I've
five-
said
Right at the apex of the story.
but okay, come on.
Okay, he can do a 50-yard punt with a 5.7 hang time.
Exactly.
Okay, so he's pretty good.
That was the point I was
Okay.
trying to make.
Any
even though I
punter
made it
can do
badly.
anything on any
All
given Sunday.
All
But
right.
he was down on his luck.
Wait, he's
He
down
was
on his luck.
pissed
This
off.
is the point.
The free trip came along.
Yeah, and he would
And,
go
and
to
here's where I
Disneyland.
fit in. This is my one part in the story. So let me
Oh,
tell
go
you
ahead.
this.
Tell you
No,
what.
no,
Let
Jason,
the prosecutor
Jason,
tell
my
us
one
one
part.
part in the story.
You're carrying
Gabe
this.
is pissed. I live in Tucson at the time. Where I live, I'm not far from the U of A. My house is in a cellular dead spot. Okay? My cell phone breaks for some reason. It broke. And Gabe is so pissed. He's like, Jason, take my cell phone. I don't want it anyway. Okay? So he gives me his cell phone, and then he goes with my mom and my sister, and they
to
leave town.
Disneyland.
To Disneyland. Okay. So it's a really good Disneyland trip. We're not thinking football because he's really depressed. Okay.
Don't talk about football.
Yeah, no, we don't talk about football. And I've got a cell phone.
Go Pirates
but
of the
he-
Caribbean, Gabe.
But he
You're
doesn't.
an adult male football player. Let's go on Pirates of the Caribbean.
doesn't-
Let's go in the teacups. Don't think about football.
He doesn't
Meanwhile-
give his agent my cell phone
No,
number.
his agent did have your cell phone number and his, which now, of course, is in my possession. But go
Okay.
ahead.
So, but he takes his girlfriend to Disneyland, and the big deal is he's carrying around for 2 days. He's carrying around an engagement ring, thinking about how he's going to present this to her in Disneyland. And so he gets so
Faggot.
he gets so nervous.
That was some interference, audio interference.
Yeah,
Faggot.
He
I
gets
think that was
so
an
nervous
overhead
that he's
jet.
going to lose the engagement ring. He gives it to his mother to carry because he's afraid he's going to lose
And you
it.
traded it for magic beans. But anyway, off topic.
So we go along. He finally finds the perfect way to propose to the girl. Okay, they get engaged. Okay, it's a happy, wonderful time. Nobody's thinking about football. I get in the car and start driving home. He gets on an airplane with the fiance and flies home. He gets home to Morenci, Arizona, and there's 17 messages on his cell phone, on his machine, where his agent and the NFL tried to reach him. They said, "Okay, we want you. Come here. We want to have you. You're going to be our punter."
They fired the
And
other
This is
guy.
the
Gabe was
Patriots'
next in
Yeah.
line.
first Super Bowl
Yeah,
win.
Patriots.
This is late
Yeah.
season
The other
Patriots.
guy was gone.
2001 into their
I'm not-
2002
I'm not on here.
victory over the Rams 17-14. Fucking, and they were like 15-point underdogs. He would have been on the team. He would have had a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Now
First.
There's a
Okay.
really miserable.
So he gets home, 17 messages on his machine, and now it's 2 days later, and it's so sorry.
And they called the third guy in line is
Yeah,
basically what
third
happened because they
guy,
couldn't reach
'cause
him.
They couldn't reach him, so they get the
I
next
had
guy.
his cell phone. My house is in a dead spot. But if anybody who knows me knows that I am very
He's really
unreliable when
bad.
it comes
He's really
to calling
bad.
me.
Every time you think, wow, I left my cell phone at home. I feel naked without it.
No,
Yeah,
that's
not as naked
Jason.
as Gabe Lindstrom.
Well,
So Gabe
felt
Lindstrom
in
messed up. They went to the Super Bowl. They won their first Super Bowl, and he didn't get
well,
to go.
and another part of the story is he gave me his cell phone. Of course, the agent had that number. The agent tried that number several times, left several messages. I didn't have cell service unless I walked out into my backyard and stood in this certain spot. This is early cell phone.
And of course, you didn't do it.
But I hate the phone. I rarely use it. So I never went out there. I never got that message. Had I gotten it, of course, I would have called immediately. So I feel bad.
Who would you call?
Gabe. I would call.
You had his fucking cell phone. How are you going to call
His
Gabe,
girlfriend
stupid?
had a
What are you
phone.
Who would have left a message
so he gets-
after all the
You're
other
gonna call
messages?
Disneyland.
You know what I would have
Hey,
done?
can you
I
call
would have driven to
Page
Disneyland and
Gabe?
went and got
I
him.
know there's only
So he-
250,000
Yeah.
people in it. Can you page Gabe? He might have
Put
a
it this
job.
way: had I got that message, I would have found a way to reach him. I would have given him that message.
So-
No, you probably, as a prick, would have shown up in all your fucking Patriots wearing his clothes and kicked awful punts through the whole Super Bowl. You'd be shanking them to the, like me throwing out the first pitch here or there. Yeah, you'd have been shanking punts behind you.
Well, for all anyone knows, that may have happened.
Yeah, well, no one knows who the Patriots punter was in the 2002
Well,
Super Bowl.
they went to the Super Bowl, and he did not get picked up. So, and that
Wow.
was the downfall of his life. So
Well,
it was all downhill from there.
I've seen him accidentally smile once or twice since
Nah, I don't think you did.
then. Well, it might have been a fake smile,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's rehabbing well.
Well, for the record,
a decade later.
Gabe is doing very well now.
Yep.
But he did, after that, he did go play preseason for the Seahawks. He went to NFL Europe again.
He was
Well,
he
the
was
final-
special teams player of the year once or
He
twice
was,
over
he
for
was.
the Rhineland Jew killers or something. I don't know.
But the final nail in the coffin, at least in my opinion, you'd have to ask Gabe to verify, but was when he got the contract with the Cardinals, was the very last thing, and the contract was nullified by the Cardinals doctor, who said he was too high a risk given the fact that he had those hairline
Diabetes.
fractures in his back.
Oh, I thought it was
No,
diabetes.
it was a fraction in the back.
Oh, all right.
Well,
Which
and
was
it was loosely linked to his diabetes that he even got that fracture in the first place. I guess it does something to your bones. I don't know.
Either way, it's a
Either way.
sad ending to what might be the beginning or the end of this podcast, depending how it's edited. I listened to a lot of stories on XM Sirius Radio today of comics broadcasting live from Just for Laughs. And I love comics and I miss them, but you know what? The fucking people next door have great fucking stories too, and sometimes better than, I had to share a hotel room with this guy. That's it. All right, that was the wrap-up of Nurse Betty. This podcast brought to you by my shit on my website. Go buy something or go to iTunes. I don't know how this shit works. We're in Bisbee, Arizona. I don't know what podcast this will go into because this is just a death pool addendum, an update on the most current death pool news with the death poolers from the Stanhope's. What's our team called?
Doug Stanhope. Oh, it's Stanhope's Bisbee
Death Merchants.
Death Merchants.
That's the one.
You know, I looked at a lot of the names of the other teams in the site-wide, and they're way more creative. So we might have to get a new name. 'cause,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't have a funny name.
Yeah,
You
I
picked
just-
it.
I punted. That's
This
all
is
I did.
Jobi right next to me. He's the guy who put this whole idea together to get the site that does all the. Is it aggregation? Would that be the right word? Sure. Fucking see, Melissa Holden. Like 30 seconds in, I drop aggregation. Huh? What do you got there?
Things and create synergy. That's fantastic.
All right, Betty's here. Sounds like by the sound of the dogs in the background, Betty's here. That'll be later or on another podcast. It doesn't matter. It's our world. Chad Shank is here.
I am indeed.
Recently leaped into second
Second
place
place.
in the death pool.
Controversial score.
Yeah,
Second place.
very controversial. And we
Very
will tell you- yeah,
controversial.
it's-
We'll talk about that. And, of course, Melissa Holden here. Should we bleep out your name? Do you have ambitions for your future in office?
No, I don't.
All right.
Also known as Bisbee B.
Bisbee B, yes. Chad Shank is just Chad Shank in our league.
HD
the Death
fatty.
Merchants.
I don't hide behind anonymity.
Right on. Right on.
Well, your last name is Shank. Come on.
Well, we want to do some updates because it's mid-year. It's a slow season for pushing this on new people because, if you're starting a league now, you can do it. But, you're kind of fucking late in the game. Melissa Holden has broken so many records just of our personal death pool playing years.
Absolutely.
Now that we've gone pro online.
First one to break 300 points. Highest number of hits. You got 9 hits out of 20, which is
for those who
amazing.
don't know how Death Pool works, go to Doug Stanhope CelebrityDeathPool.com or just the acronym, which is DSCDP.com, and read the rules. But basically, you at the beginning of the year, you pick 20 people you think are going to die. You get 100 points per kill, less their age. So you pick 90-year-old people, you get less points, more kills. You, Melissa, have, as of mid-year, 9 out of your 20 picks are dead, which is phenomenal. I think I won last year with 5 deaths.
5 or 6.
5 or 6. You have 9 out of 20, but you're still not the leader site-wide. There is someone
that just overtook you recently.
Not in our pool. You're still kicking the shit out of everyone in this pool. But Chad Shank's right on your heels. He's got a 6-year-old or something.
I've got a few prospects.
Well, here's the fucked up thing. Let's get to this right away. There's a lot of people. One of these, a recent death, what's the name?
Talia Castellano.
What's her backstory?
All right. Her backstory is she's basically famous for being sick and doing YouTube makeup videos, and she was an honorary cover girl because she has cancer and she's terminal.
And Ellen DeGeneres brings her on the show.
Ellen DeGeneres used her to promote
makes her
her new
this
movie.
big, look, the poor girl with cancer and the eyeliner.
Absolutely. So
So we made the rule after. It was too late. It was approved site-wide on Death Pool. And then we thought, you know what? You can't be famous just for dying. Already you can't have...
for being sick. You can't be famous for having an illness.
Yeah, we already have the rule you can't be on death row.
Exactly.
So this is the same kind of thing. There was a chick singer that my manager, Brian Hennigan, couldn't wait to tell me about because she was trying to make a #1 hit out of some Nat King Cole song or something in England before she died of breast cancer. And I go, yeah, I want to, but it's kind of cheating because she's only famous for dying of breast cancer. But this one had already been approved, so it's like the steroid years of Death Pool. Anyone who had...
Talia Castellano and broke a record or anything on it is going to have a little asterisk next to their record.
In the Death Pool Hall of Fame.
You were on steroids.
How shameful.
Yes. So he's catching up on you, but the guy that's winning had her. So you don't have an asterisk next to your name, and
you did it
to promote
without steroids.
Celebrity Death Pool. This is a sport chicks can win at. even World Poker Tour. Yeah.
Right. Sport
chicks
maybe,
can't even win at that. Yeah, the whole what's it called? The poker thing.
Yeah, World Series of
World
Poker.
Series of Poker. Yeah. Chicks fail. Death Pool. Oh, we have a monster and she has a vagina.
And I could probably beat you up.
Probably. But probably the only way I could get a boner at my age. But I digress. Let's get to some stats. Hang on. I have notes. I have a yellow legal pad.
And we've got our brilliant web group that designed the website. Mark and Gina are in the corner, and they're going to be, fielding us on all this. So
yeah, this feels like an actual show now. We have Shawnee producing, making sure we don't fuck up the mics. We have 2 people on laptops. Just
This is the most produced drunk I've ever
we have
gotten.
an audience. Shannon behind us is our audience.
Yep, and a Death Pool member. She
was in first place for a while, and
She's
we're
in
like,
third
who
place.
the fuck is Shannon?
She had Minnie McCready that
Minnie
rocketed her.
McCready.
That was a
Yeah,
big hit.
always. Thank you, Dr. Drew. Another Dr. Drew killed. Did you hear the Dr. Drew podcast where I thanked him for having so many people die so I don't have to follow pop culture so much to do this well? I wanted to site-wide, because we glad hand each other and pat each other on the back or give each other the finger. But site-wide, we went through some numbers. Paul Welke. I'm just going to use. I know Paul Welke. He's the guy that's number one. He's a filthy Canadian.
That's
Technically number 1 and number 2.
He's
Yeah,
technically number one and number two.
and he's gonna have a little asterisk
Because he's
next to his
well,
name.
he's in two different
Constantly,
pools with
forever.
the same picks. So yeah, so he's number one with 369 points. Again, a record. You, Bisbee B, Melissa Holden, 353. Someone called Sauceum, like awesome with a sauce.
Hey.
Nice.
Sauceum is at 332. Burger, 293. And our own Chad Shank is in fifth, site-wide, with 287 points.
Nice. I
Nicely
did not
done.
know that.
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna get
Site-wide.
You will.
I'm in with the big leaguers. My rookie year.
With an
With an
asterisk.
asterisk.
Yeah. But it's gonna be right there next to your name.
I'm more proud of that asterisk than anything else.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm the exception that created the rule.
There should be some kind of a notation for the Dr. Drew hits too. I think. I don't know if those are totally.
Well, if the show was going on, we'd probably definitely have that rule. Probably, definitely.
Probably, definitely.
Yeah. But, yeah, that show is over. So those are the top players. The top leagues, and again, this makes me realize how shitty our league name is. We're number one. Mm-hmm. Explain how the league rankings work. Do
All
you
right,
wanna-
Mark, you want to come over here and explain? Yeah, like you got to come up to the mic. Come here.
No, you can't hear.
Explain the math to the folks real quick on the ring.
The very simple math is it's hits. It's hits per person in the league. So it's an average of number of hits per person. That's why we're leading, because she's got 9 fucking hits. Nobody has that.
So it does. So when if you have like 40 people in your league and someone else has 5 people, it still boils down to the amount of kills per person. So right
Absolutely.
now,
It plays upon the skill of the players within the league. If it, like you, when you 9 people out of 20, astonishing. But at any point that you get a tie in that average, then we go on the number of points you got in those hits.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the first part of this season, they really had some slipshod fashion of deciding how to rank the leagues, but then they hired a mathematician behind a 7-Eleven with a sign. The second team, the second place team site-wide is Necroconicon. Necromonicon. That's a team. I can't even say it, but it's cooler than our fucking name. Ready, Set, Die is number 3. That's a cool name. I like that.
That's Welke's.
That's
his
Welke's. Yeah, you fucking Canuck. Lesbian Vomit, number 4. Yeah, so yeah. Well, it's
edgy,
not
but
imaginative. Well, it's
It is kind of.
lesbian vomit.
How often do you picture lesbian vomit?
How often do I
Like,
picture
how is it
lesbian
different from a
vomit?
straight person's
It's
vomit? Is it
there
a
probably
white person's vomit?
a plethora of websites devoted to that fetish. You go, as my IT person, you look up lesbian vomit porn and see how many hits, how many Google. And then in 5th place, the Stanhope Stragglers. You're people that we don't trust enough to actually gamble with. Because
All
we
lumped
gamble.
into one
That's the thing. You got to do the
funeral home.
gambling shit on your own. We just do all the fucking paperwork.
Right.
So, yeah, Stanhope Stragglers. And I suck shit in that one. I think I'm in 7th place in my own where I put my A picks. I think I only had one kill, which was Thatcher in my secondary picks.
Yeah, he's in like 30th place or something like that.
Yeah, it
so.
stinks. So yeah, congrats to you. Oh wait, yeah, okay. We did the players, the teams. We were gonna do the top 10 picks site wide. The people, only 2 of the top 10 picks have died
Exactly this year, and
total
number 1
site wide of all the picks.
Number 1 is
Wait. I want to. You just got here, Melissa Holden. Who had more picks, Chavez or Lohan?
site-wide people that pick them.
It's hard because obviously it should be Chavez, but they're your fans, so
Exactly.
Lindsay.
Exactly. Well, and it's a lot of their first time playing.
Right.
Like, if you looked at our picks from our first year, yeah, it was any idiot who, he smoked cigarettes, he'll probably die. That Barack Obama, I saw a photo of him with a cigarette in his mouth.
Well, in fairness, last year was my first year, and I did pick her.
Mm-hmm.
So there.
All right. Well, I mocked everyone who picked Amy Winehouse. Like,
And
yeah, that's
I
just,
hit her and ended up, like that was the OD and the solo pick and the whole 9 yards, I think.
Top 10 picks site-wide from 10 going down. Kirk Douglas, 10th most popular pick.
Still a solid pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I get one of those. I didn't know he was still alive.
He didn't make my cut, but I had him on the list.
He looks like hell.
Well, yeah, I decided because, again, with us, we get into a pissing match about who has the most random, obscure guy that no one else would have found. So I go, well, I'm going to take one. There were 5 that you go, one of these guys is going to die. But I'm going to pick one. I'm not going to go with all. Kirk Douglas, Thatcher, number 9. She's dead. She was on my last year list. Got rid of her. Died right in my face to rub it in.
Me too.
Everybody, I thought, I was surprised at this, the Wilco Johnson from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I think it came out in the news so close to
the end of the year. It was
right when you had to make your picks.
And the headline was that he wasn't seeking treatment.
Right,
was
yeah.
the clincher.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah,
says
that's-
Wilco Johnson.
Right.
Whenever I see anything hit HuffPo, I just know that it's not going to be a solo pick anymore, and it's over.
You just made this fucking Death Pool podcast so alternative just by saying HuffPo. Jesus Christ.
Way to go.
Sorry.
Zsa Zsa Gabor is at number 10, 9, 8, 7.
For 3 points or something?
But she's the one.
Same thing
I
with Douglas,
think she's
I mean.
always going to be number 1. She's only at 7. Nelson Mandela was one that now you go.
He's getting better.
He's
At
getting
at
better.
95,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
improving.
Yeah, he twitched. Oh,
Well, yeah.
I'm not
As
in the
opposed
money.
to being in a coma like he, was for a little while.
He was one of the 5. Castro is next. He was one of the ones that Lohan is at number 4. See, I really thought everyone's picking Lohan. No one's doing research. Lohan is she probably has a publicist that gives her fake coke and says, "Do this in a public place," because otherwise people don't really know what the fuck you do. Can you hit a pole and then just swish your mouth out with some alcohol-based something?
It's worked.
Because otherwise we can't get you in the trades at all. Ali, I had him last year.
Me
He was
too.
definitely dead, and then got better like Mandela. He twitched a lot. He twitched quite a bit.
Still twitching.
Still.
Yeah,
To
he's
this
out
day.
there shaking hands when he's just trying to high five. Bush, HW, the first Bush. He was, again, because he was in the hospital. And, of course, number 1, Hugo Chavez. And yeah, that was the top.
So just
10.
2 out of the top 10.
Only 2, and this is July, late July. Is it August yet? Oh,
Low hanging fruit doesn't always fall, people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So actually, I have a question about how the homes are ranked. So let's say somebody got 10 picks, but they're all 95 or so. Would they still be ahead of me in our home just because they have more hits?
What do you say, Mark? Are you paying attention or?
In home ranking, that seems like that
Yeah,
would
that
be.
seems
that
like-
seems like that would
yeah.
be so.
That's how it is.
Because it doesn't go on
based on
points.
hits.
It's about your skill, the skill of the player to choose.
It's about the skill of the
current
player
deaths.
being able to choose who's gonna die.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it suck to go? Wouldn't it suck to have a
Regardless of
perfect season and not win? Like you just get a lot of 95-year-old people, but one fucking asshole with an asterisk gets a newborn royal baby with the SIDS and the fucking brain tumor. It dies right out of the womb.
So the royal fetus and now George are 2 different picks.
Well, the royal fetus is now out of the database. Obviously, people that do had it, it doesn't apply anymore. And then now Prince George is in the database.
Can be picked.
So
Hang on,
Sid's
Betty's whispering.
100-point hit right there.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah, I'll be
leaving, are you,
watching that
whore?
baby's health closely for the rest of this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go
He's-
make a drink. You're
Don't
next.
have to worry about that. So.
All right. Good deaths. No, did anyone have Tony Soprano?
Nope.
No,
This is
no one
fucking-
had, and
James Gandolfini.
Dennis Farina too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He just died. No one had him. There was one guy that requested to have him in the database. I accepted that. He put him on his watch list, left him on his watch list, and that was the closest that anyone got. So pull people off your watch list.
Well, I always look for fat people, and they're hard to find. Everyone that was fat, good. Even like John Goodman dropped. As I'm looking for fatties that age. Oh, he just dropped 70 pounds. And you're like, didn't think Tony Soprano. But you don't really think of him as fat.
Well,
he's just giant.
And
I've
he
got
did a lot
two
of
guys.
coke.
I've got 2 guys over 700 pounds on my current list, and that's fat. So you don't think James Gandolfini's gonna die of being a fat guy before those guys? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. He.
No, I didn't hear what he ate that day, and you don't have a mic. Just to name drop Neil Hamburger. Fuck, I forget what place is he in. I think he's in like 11. He's got 108 points.
Yeah, he's doing well.
11th.
Yeah.
Ari Shafir and Jim Jeffries, they were in last year, but they didn't. I think Jim Jeffries, because he had a fucking kid, now he doesn't. Now it's not
an
so
FX
funny
show.
to play Death Pool anymore because I created life. You queer. It's always good to start a fucking beef. He has a podcast people listen to. Ari Shafir, I don't know if we forgot to call. Pocket Monkey John Tullers, he's on the board. But the 3 hashtag zeros, I think this is Shawcroft, Lynn Shawcroft's 2nd year in a row of 0 kills. A fucking 1.5 goose egg. Carlos Valencia goose egg. And like he toured with us. He knows how to do research. Evidently not. And JT Habersat, nothing.
Oh yeah, JT's tanking.
Yeah,
That's right.
I wanted to. What did I write down? Oh, just there was a couple other. I didn't write a lot down. Oh, a couple other funny team names. Bobby Barnett's corn shoot. You have to be a fan, Melissa, to understand that. You don't even like me.
True.
And 1, 2, fuck you. Yeah, it's kind of, yes, again, you might say it's unimaginative. It alliterates well. 1, 2, fuck you. I like it. I like the fucking creativity. Yeah, we're gonna have some new rules for 2014. Start getting your team together. We're gonna try to make it more cost effective where it works. And a lot of people that start teams and then they don't have no friends. I know what you feel like.
You're gonna find a home for them. Yep.
Yeah. So we're working this out, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's it.
Any picks for next year that people should keep out, like obvious picks?
I haven't started too much this year. I've got mostly what I've got's obscure stuff right now. I haven't looked at anything obvious yet. At some point, the strategy becomes, though, obvious is going to be a good strategy. At what point does Zsa Zsa Gabor, everybody says, everybody's going to pick her, and then you get her as a solo pick?
Absolutely. Like we just talked about Sam Simon, co-creator of The Simpsons, and he's got colon cancer and 6 months to live. He might make it to 2014. That should be...
Shit, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. If he does make it to 2014, he's going to should be top of the list of,
early hit.
Yeah.
He's the new Wilco Johnson.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So-
no, at this point, if I hear someone's dying, I go, well, fuck, it's wasted. Then that's something you look at. Well, how's he doing in December?
Yeah.
A lot of these people have Twitter feeds, like Ryan Buell. Everyone that did research has Ryan Buell. He's on some ghost hunter
Paranormal,
show.
yeah.
What's it called? Paranormal activities.
Something. I follow him on Twitter. Dude.
Yeah. Well, he's always up. He's always up with people. Everything's great.
Yeah.
He's probably has these wispy piano fingers that are tapping at the keyboard when he says it. I'm gonna beat it, but he ain't dead yet.
So was Robin Gibb.
You have Ryan Buell, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Do you? I know you don't follow it the same way I do because you're not weird. But do you have any prospects that you think are gonna give you even more points in the future that you think are going to go? I mean, because I'm looking right now, and I've only got a couple that I think are probably going to die this year. The rest of mine are looking pretty good.
I know some have bounced back. That's always really sad when they're doing better. Or like one of my.
It's always
when you're
it's
wrestling.
always really sad when they're doing better.
Or I have a vegetable, and they just decided to transfer him. It's like he's been a vegetable for 1.5 years. I know he's a Danish prince, but.
Well, that's Ariel. Ariel Sharon, is it? That's been in a coma for fucking 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone in this room have someone on their death pool list that they'll actually be really sad when they celebrate that death? Like Ralphie May's a friend of mine, but I'd still I'd laugh, going, "Ha ha, you knew." For years, before Death Pool was when we were actually doing it, we do comic Death Pool sitting around the bar. Like, what comic do you think's gonna die next? And Ralphie's always in your top 5 because he's fat as shit. But he'd be at the table when you go, "You fat fuck." So it would be funny kind of if he died. I'd still be sad. But like Tony Soprano, you don't want that guy is fucking great. I hated even updating on Twitter, he was worth this many points.
It's a rough one. I don't know if I have anyone on my list that I would be sad.
No,
Last year I had Tim Curry as a wild card. I love Tim Curry. His music, his best of Tim Curry album would be in my top 5 if I were on a desert island. I wouldn't listen to it because I hate music. But if you're on a desert island, that's kind of the rule. You get 5 albums.
I was gonna say I don't want to hear your
or a
other
volleyball.
4.
Yeah. I don't know how the rules work. Anyway, all right, that's a Death Pool update that will be attached to some podcast that ran short.
Absolutely. Just a reminder, you guys. It's still middle of the year. You can start a pool up until November. From now until November, and that it cuts off at that point. No new pools can start. From November, I think 1st, Day of the Dead.
We will have a new site, a new pricing structure, a new whole format by the end of October, so you can gear up and over the holidays when you're sitting around with your family going, "Oh, I want these people dead." But if it was someone famous, who would I want dead? And then you can start building, and we'll have it all ready for 2014. Get involved. You can't.
Hear your feedback.
You can't. You can't win if you don't want a celebrity to die. I don't know. We need some kind of catchphrase. I don't
bring
know.
us some competition.
That's it.
Okay. Oh yeah, the pricing now is $6.66. It's for pool. So,
well, that's evil. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Get the fuck out. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and whatever one it was attached to, like a leech, to kill an extra 20 minutes. And as always, we close it out with the Matoid.
Party time.
All right, I hope you enjoyed it. We have another fun episode coming out soon. As always, I am sponsored by me. So go buy tickets to my show, or buy a DVD or a CD, or go get a download at DougStanhope.com.
Party time. Yeah.
You've been listening to the Doug Stanhope Podcast, recorded live at the Funhouse in Bisbee, Arizona, with Doug Stanhope, Betty Lindstrom, Jason Lindstrom Esquire, and Chad Shank. Engineered by Seany. Produced by me, Greg Chaille. Celebrity Death Pool segment also included Jobi and Melissa Holden. Opening music by Mishka Shubale. Party Time by the Matoid. Both available on iTunes. Check out Doug's upcoming live dates at DougStanhope.com. For all things famous and dying, stop by Doug Stanhope's CelebrityDeathPool.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the merch table.
It's party time, yeah. Oh baby, grab your craps and fuck your fox. It's party time. Grab your craps and fuck your fox. It's party time. Everybody, grab your craps and fuck your fox. It's party time. One more. Grab your craps and fuck your fox. It's party time. Here we go. Party time, yeah. Party time, party time, yeah. Party time, 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 hey! Party time, yeah!